All right, what's going on, y'all? How y'all doing today on a very soggy, cold, rainy Monday evening here with Steve here in the Atlanta Bird Gang? Just got the breaking news just in that Dan Quinn has been hired to be the next defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, obviously, after everything that's gone down, I guess the main question you would say is, Steve, why do we care? Oh, let me turn this volume down here. Sorry, y'all. Well, you're gonna hear me twice, and I don't want that to happen. Hold on a second. Turn that right there. Okay, so Dan Quinn hired as the defense coordinator, Dallas Cowboys. So I guess my main thing is one, why should we care? And we care because he was our head coach 4 months ago. So listen, Dan Quinn was a cool. He seemed like somebody that you would not mind going to the bar with and going to laugh and talk and talk about football. He does seem like he'd be a great college coach. I really think he'd be a really good college coach, in my opinion. But from a standpoint of going to coach the Dallas Cowboys, I tell you what, if you're looking to get back into a head coach position, this is no better way to prove it. You're going to the Dallas Cowboys, who, aside of our defense, was probably the worst defense consistently in 2020. So what better way would you have than to show that you are ready to get back into coaching than to go to the Dallas Cowboys? Now, Dallas had a lot more problems than just the defense, because they still got to figure out what they're going to do with Dak Prescott and whether they're going to sign him or not. But from a standpoint of the Dan Quinn thing, if I'm Dan Quinn, well, it's not a bad deal. I would like to see, I know normally those coaches have clauses in their contracts where they still get paid as long as they're not taking the same exact job that like a lateral position. So he may be taking that job also, so he can still get those checks from Flowery Branch. Possibility. Jory, what's going on, buddy? Said that was fool's gold hire for Dallas. That's what I think too. I think that's one of those jobs. I think you're taking that job more for the star on the helmet rather than the actual job itself, because he has a lot of work to do. Hey, Lisa, how are you? I just trying to get some opinions about Dan Quinn getting hired. I know he's not our coach anymore, for those of you who are ready to roll that out, but he was our coach less than 4 months ago. So just trying to feel the vibe around there. Also, hearing rumors about who's the next coach, who's the next GM here in Atlanta. I mean, we are all over the place. I'm kind of surprised that we're a week removed from the regular season and there hasn't been an actual front runner for the job. Truly surprised about that. Depending on what source you read, and I'm talking about serious sources too, because you get the AJC, like the old AJC beat writers against each other, to be honest. D Orlando Ledbetter has come out from the AJC and said that his interview didn't go well. Steve Weiss, who used to be in that position years ago and now with the NFL Network, he said that the interview went very well. So depending on who you're listening to and who you're watching, I guess that depends on what opinion you're going to get about, who is going to be the next coach. Lisa said, weren't we all ranked nearly last in most defensive statistical categories when he was heading our defense? It only got better once Morris and Ulbrich took over. This is true. I guess maybe what they maybe thinking, Lisa, is that he'll have one focus instead of the team, and maybe just focusing on the defense might be helpful. Mike McCarthy, and I was listening to some of the excuses they were giving about why the defense didn't work in Dallas, and I can understand a little bit where they were supposed to input this hybrid defense where it would switch back and forth from 3-4 to 4-3, and because of COVID, they weren't able to install it and weren't able to make it work. Well, that thing, the only reason that doesn't have legs is because every team in the NFL had problems because of COVID. So I'm less likely to accept that excuse as to why uh, Dallas's defense failed so much. Uh, but I think, yeah, I guess I'm not reading the same thing, Lisa. I'm thinking uh, maybe somebody saying, let's go back to your glory days when you were in Seattle and you were coaching on a Super Bowl defense and you were in charge of the Super Bowl defense. Maybe Dallas has some pretty good pieces on their defensive staff. As far as their personnel, I shouldn't say staff, on their personnel, they have some pretty good folks on there. Jalen Smith, Sean Lee, Lawrence. They have some pretty good folks, but they just couldn't put it all together. So maybe that's what the thought is. Or he says, I agree with you, Steve. I think DQ would be a better college coach. I think he would be a great college coach. He seems like he's definitely a leader of men. As we're sitting here talking right now, we got a flash through from the Atlanta Falcons .com that Tampa Bay defensive coordinator Todd Bowles completed his interview remotely on Monday. There are some names that have come up that I would say to myself, I say, oh, wow, I didn't realize he was trying to, get the job. Listen, I'm at a point right now where it's not even so much a name because there's really nobody out there that is I've gotta have him. I know everybody's been pushing this Eric Bieniemy thing, but if you ask me, if he was auditioning the day that the Kansas City played Atlanta, I would give him a C or C minus as far as execution and what he was running during that day. I know a lot of people still are going to gravitate to the top name just because he's with the top team, and he should gets a little bit of credit for running the offense that the Super Bowl champs are a part of. Flipping over Eric Bieniemy, not yet, but I just can't see us. I just don't see Eric Bieniemy in this position. What's up, Rusty? How you doing? Said no to Todd. Yeah, I just read that because it was the last thing that was read. I think Todd Bowles did not do a really good job with the Jets, and I don't know. There's something that's just saying steer away from that. And from a perspective from a Tampa Bay defense, they were kind of loaded. And I think they were kind of loaded because the allure of Brady kind of helped out. But you also had Devin White, Shaq Barrett, and Ndamukong Suh came in when he heard Brady was there. You have JPP is there. You have some good folks on that Tampa Bay defense. I'm not saying anybody could do it, but I look at that situation right there and I'm like, ugh. I'm not sure whether that makes him a special person right now. So I don't know. I don't know. Jermaine says, would you take Doug? Are you talking about? I apologize. Doug Williams? I'm trying to say it, and I apologize because I'm not knowing which coach you're telling me about. Tell me who you're talking about, Jermaine. Tyrone, no one has done good with the Jets. This is true. Well, Tyrone, take that back. The big dude who sits on Get Up in the morning, he was doing a really good job with the Jets. He just didn't have anybody that could keep Sanchez being a consistent quarterback. I think that's the biggest thing when you start talking about the Jets. We're concerned. Nobody from the Jets. Oh, Doug Peterson. Oh, Lord. Doug Peterson might be somebody to think about. But that move that he did, and thank you, Lisa. And I got you, Jermaine. That move that he did in that game against the Washington football team, that was kind of curious. And when they were saying this week that he was going to have a meeting with Jeffrey Lurie, I thought for sure that they were going to come out of it and said, hey, we're moving forward. But the mere fact that he's what? Is it 3 years removed from the Super Bowl? And I understand you got to keep moving. But at the same time, it seemed to be there must have been some stuff going on. You bench Carson Wentz. You bring in Jalen Hurts, who you almost made a pretty nice run to try to redeem yourself in the NFC East, which didn't take much. And then that last game, when you just arbitrarily say, let me put in the guy who's been here 4 years, and of all the times he's been here 4 years, I'm going to put him in a situation where we almost had a chance to win the game. And I'm just going to do that. And his answer after the game didn't make sense. The reason why I'm bringing up all of this about him is to say, I'm not sure if I want that type of let's see, what am I looking for? There was no rhyme or reason for those decisions. You need to tell me absolutely what you were going to do. Now, if you came out at the beginning of the game and said in the first half, we're playing Jalen Hurts, in the second half, we're playing, I can't even think of the cat's name, but we're going to play him in the second half, then yeah. But I don't know. Maybe he thought he was too big for his britches. I know he was a big time OC when he was at Kansas City and stuff like that. I understand he's supposed to be a really good guru, but I'm not sure if I want anybody. Right now with Arthur Blank in this team, you need a leader. And you need somebody who's going to be lucid, somebody who can make decisions that are going to make sense and you can explain in front of not only the team, but in front of folks. In my opinion, that's what it is. So to answer your question, Jermaine, I let Doug stew for a little bit. I would. Jermaine said he was playing for a better draft pick. Yeah, but you know what? If you were going to do that, Jermaine, this is what you do. Keeping it real. You announced beforehand, and I know he announced that he might play him a little bit. If you're going to play for a draft pick and that was your sole intention and say, I'm just trying to get him some playing time, then you leave Jalen Hurts out the game. Because obviously you're going to need Jalen Hurts going forward next year. And you start the kid, the third stringer, you start him from the beginning of the game and you tell the world at the beginning, that's what we're doing. You don't take the game up to the third quarter and inches away from scoring, which it seems like now in retrospect, you weren't trying to score, and then come to the podium afterwards. Well, I was just trying to get him some time. He's been here 4 years. That'd be like us saying, if we had a chance to win a game in the third quarter and then all of a sudden we just put Benkert in the last quarter and say, oh, we're just throwing him in to get us some snaps. That's kind of crappy. Now, Giants have no reason to cry about it. They should have won more than 6 games at the end of the day. But not feeling him. Rusty, not saying I want Raheem to stay, but I love the fact that he's not afraid to call guys out. If the DQ regime didn't leave such a bad taste in our mouth, I think Raheem would be a good coach as anyone available. But we need a new culture. I understand that. Everything you said made sense. And if you remember when I was talking to you all last week and I said, don't be surprised if Raheem inherits this job. And I'm telling you, it may be because we may not be able to do a lot of things next year. Raheem might be the only person that'll say, "Ooh, do I really want to?" Because I'm here, maybe I can do some things to switch this stuff up. But I'm not sure if a lot of coaches look at this as a great job. I think a lot of coaches are just filling out their interview block to say they've been interviewed. What's up, TJ? How you doing, brother? Good to see you. I've been watching a couple of your little posts. I'm ready for you to get back online, man. When you coming back online, dude? Uh, Sudfield, that's the quarterback's name. Yeah, absolutely. Herm Edwards. Let me tell you something, James. If Herm Edwards had an itch to come back, do y'all see what he did with Arizona State, who were irrelevant for years before he got there, and has all of a sudden made them relevant in the Pac-10, which is not saying much, Pac-12, whatever it is. I mean, and that's a leader of men. That's definitely a leader of men there. If Herm Edwards was coming, I would absolutely give him an interview. But I just have this sneaky suspicion that I think that Arizona State is going to be his last gig. Corey said, word is that him and the owner sat down, had to talk about the future plans going forward, and the owner didn't like the moves he had planned for the future. But here's the thing about that, Corey, and appreciate the comment. You knew how this coach was. I know what you're saying about the future, and there's probably a little bit of debate about how he handled the Carson Wentz thing, because at the end of the day, kind of like we're stuck with Matt in a certain way, that's a lot of money you have to pay Carson. And for you to make a move like that with Jalen Hurts, even though Carson Wentz was absolutely not playing very well, but you better come in there and tell me a grand scheme on what you got going on, because I got to pay this dude $30 million. And if I'm going to pay him $30 million to hold a clipboard, I need you telling me I'm going to get an offensive coordinator that's going to get the best out of this guy that we just invested in. That's a little bit of a different story than the Matt Ryan thing. Carson Wentz is still in his 20s. Matt Ryan is on the other side of the hill, which can be explained a little bit. Carson Wentz should be hitting the prime of his career, and he's not. And he hasn't been playing like it. So, yeah, that meeting, yeah, I hear you, but that's no excuse, man. You just came out the Super Bowl 3 years ago. You won the Super Bowl 3 years ago. And then I remember these lists, and always funny to me because I always go back to them. It's like 1 year removed after winning the Super Bowl, like the next year or whatever, and they had top 3 coaches in the NFL. Doug Peterson was like number 2 behind Belichick. I was saying to myself, one Super Bowl win is great. And it takes you from average to good, to very good, I should say, to win a Super Bowl. But they were like second best coach in the league. Come on, man. Not really. So who coaches this team next? And who do we bring in here as the GM? I know the young guy from New Orleans, everybody's talking about bringing him in. I hadn't heard anything more on the Rick Smith situation. I would imagine that because you're still in the middle of the playoffs, there's no super rush at this moment, because the business year doesn't start until the middle of February anyway, where they reset the cap, which the cap is going to be lower, which is not good news to us, where you kind of assess who you're going to keep free agency and who you're going to let go. And I think the Falcons are going to be letting go a lot more people than we think. So it's not a super rush. But if there is somebody you want to get, you just added one more job to get in your way. So it was 6 vacancies. Now, as of this afternoon, there's 7. So whoever you want to get, you better go ahead and pick them now, because they may not be out there later on. So if you got your eyes on Bieniemy and you need to hurry up and clamp that down, I know he can't accept the job officially until the end of the year. But if you want him and that's your guy, then you better make it plain. If you want Rick Smith and to come in here and be the GM, you better make it plain. Because I think with these opening jobs, Philadelphia, it's not a horrific job right now. Now their team is getting a little bit older too, especially the defense. So that's going to be an interesting decision to see who comes in there with that guy. Rusty, any thoughts on why Riddick's name isn't getting talked about by Atlanta so far? I figured that would have been one of the first interviews we conducted. Also, are we putting the carriage in front of the horse by going after a head coach first? I thought the GM gets, I'm pretty sure you're going to say gets hired and chooses his coach. A lot of teams do it kind of differently, especially nowadays, because the head coach essentially has as much power as the GM. Remember, they had to change that structure a few years ago when Dan Quinn was hired to come in here to Atlanta, where essentially Dan Quinn reported to Arthur Blank and Thomas Dimitroff. He had a different lane that he went into, and they said they were working collaboratively. And yes, while the general manager usually is the one that's hiring, I think in this case here, I think they're looking at it as like, look, if there's a head coach guy we need to get out there, let's get him now. And then let the GM piece fall where it may. Now, if it was Steve running the team, I would get the GM in first. Because I want a GM that has a vision. I want a GM that's going to lay out what he's going to do with this squad for the next 12 months. And while I know 2021 is probably not going to be that year, unlike 18, 19, and 20, where there was a lot of hope, I honestly feel like we can be okay, but I think you need to temper your expectations. We have an older roster. We have some young folks, but we have some old big contracts. And we have a situation where a lot of GMs said, shoot, if I'm looking over there at Jacksonville and I'm looking over there and at a couple other teams and saying, man, they got a little flexibility. I might be able to bring some influence in here, some guys I know, and work with some contracts. You come here to Atlanta, you already coming with your hands tied. You're already coming with restrictions, restraints. And then, more importantly, they're giving you Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and say, okay, I need you to squeeze I know we've been using this too much. Y'all probably think I'm crazy. Squeeze as much of that lemon as you can, as much juice as you can out there lemon. Because these cats more than likely aren't going anywhere. And if they go anywhere, that's even worse because that's more money we're not going to be able to spend. If you're going to, draft picks are great. But if you trade those guys away, that's all you're going to have is draft picks. And you don't want to go into a year like that. I mean, the only team I think that did that successfully recently is our hated rivals down there in the Bayou. That 2017 draft was amazing. Turned the whole team around. That's why you might want to get Terry from New Orleans. Hopefully he was part of that process to move them down here. Sedarius, what's going on, man? How you doing, brother? Yes, USPS, brother. A long time, my friend. Long time. What about David Shaw? He is someone that doesn't get any credit or anything like that. You know, it's kind of interesting. You never hear his name, and he does a great job out there on the West Coast. You never hear his name for any jobs. You don't. That's weird. I wonder if that's by design. I have never heard his name mentioned since he's been out there at Stanford. Not once. I've never heard his name. That's a good name, though. Christian says you want Joe Brady. Joe Brady is an interesting. It would be interesting to see what he would have to offer. I don't mind. I know he was highly regarded coming out of LSU last year. And listen, Maybe. Maybe it doesn't hurt to have the greatest assembled offensive talent around you in 10, 15 years. That kind of helps your cause. And if you were going to get see, that's why this GM head coach thing is going to be very important. Because with that GM in that interview, he needs to tell me what you 3 questions. What you gonna do with the salary cap? No, scratch that. I'm gonna start number one. What you gonna do with Matt and Julio? Are you getting a quarterback in the draft? Number two. And who you bringing in here for offensive coordinator? Those are the 3 main things I need to hear if I'm Rich McKay, Arthur Blank, or whoever's in charge of hiring GM. I need to know what you're gonna do with Matt and Julio. I need to know, are you picking a quarterback with this first pick? And we're going to have time to go over that. And bringing in a solid offensive coordinator for this team. It's going to make a difference. The pick at number 3 has to coincide with who you're bringing in here as a coach. If you're bringing in a young, fresh quarterback for this team, you can't hire somebody who's stuck in the West Coast offense. You're probably going to have to bring one of these guys who just finished coaching these guys, a la Joe Brady, Cliff Kingsbury, some guys like that who are used to these athletes coming out of school now and how they roll. You may have to bring somebody like that. OG triple steals. Kristen says, I think Julio will stay and retire a Falcon. Matt will be traded this year. It's going to be an interesting scenario. And this is not saying it can't happen, folks. But y'all do realize if you trade Matt, you are basically not open to the free agent market for the next 2 years. Y'all do know that. You are. There will be some things you will be able to do, but most that you won't. We are already $25 million. Before we even start the business year, we're $25 million in the hole. Cutting Matt at this moment, has nothing to do with loyalty, has nothing to do with I love Matt pom-poms, has nothing to do with that. It's strictly business. It may not be the smartest thing. Now, not to contradict myself, the number 3 pick, if the kid playing in an hour is able to come to this team, to Atlanta, hometown kid, back, and we can take him, I'm sending him to plane to Columbus to go get him. So, in what better circumstance to have him learn under? A quarterback, a professional quarterback. Say what you want about Matt and the deep ball and the noodle arm and all the other crazy stuff that half of you extremist fans dog Matt for. Say what you want to say about that, but Matt is 100% professional. Matt is 100% the quarterback. If I had a young rookie that I would say, go see what he does every day. Go see how he learns every day. Go see how he takes information in from 5 to 6 different OCs in 13 years. That's the guy you would want to learn under. That's my opinion. Lisa, did you tune into the press conference with Blank and McKay at the end of the season? If so, what were your thoughts on what they said about the state of the franchise? I think they were being about as, no pun intended, with a blank stare in their face. I think they were being as honest as they could about the situation. Still, just like they did earlier in the year, right after they got rid of Quinn, and they were basically saying, hey, nobody's untouchable, basically, paraphrasing. Nobody's untouchable on this team. And you have to go into that year. And Blake still wants them to win now. Blake is probably like, look, if y'all can get some duct tape and tape up Matt's arm or put him some steroid. I know he wouldn't say steroid, but give him something to get that arm super powered and give Julio an anti-hamstring something to put on his leg. You do it in a heartbeat. This might sound crazy, but follow me here. What are your chances? What are the chances AB brings Raheem the Dream back for a year? Then lets Matt and Julio become movable after next season financially. If it doesn't go well, we can get the new head coach next year, and then he will have more flexibility with the roster. Sound crazy, I know. Rusty, I'm trying to tell you, not only is that not crazy, I'm trying to tell you, don't be shocked if that happens. There might be a 1-year plan here until we can get over the hump next year where the numbers will be much easier to make those moves. It'll be much easier to do those things next year. This is not saying Steve is saying don't move forward. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm telling you is it's going to be a lot easier financially to be able to make a lot of moves next year. This team can win, y'all. They really can. This team has the ability to win. We need some defense. We need some help on the other corner of AJ. Probably need another linebacker. If I were this team, I would still go heavy defense. For all the criticism that this offensive line got, and I'm sitting here trying to tell you, y'all can criticize me if you want to, the offensive line did not do a bad job this year. We didn't have good running backs. Brian Hill is a journeyman. Ito Smith is a third down back that you just pop in on third down. Todd Gurley, bad call. Not going to cost us a lot in the long run. Cost us 1 year. We had some bad running backs. The offensive line is going to be okay. We do need to worry a little bit about Hennessy and whoever's going to play the left guard. But look, Jake Matthews didn't have a horrific year, folks. He really didn't. Go back, and if you don't believe me, go back and look. Game Pass. Tell me, I'll repeat it for you. He really didn't have a bad year. Matt got a little nervous this year. Matt held that ball too long this year. Matt didn't move around like he was in 2016 and 17. He did near the end of the year. He tried. But Matt's getting a little older. And we have to look to the future. And whether that's Justin Fields, whether that's Zach Wilson, whether that's Trey Lance, whether that's miraculously from the heavens is Trevor Lawrence, which is probably not. But what I'm saying is we have to, whether Matt's going to be here or not, put our foot in the sand and say, this is the right now, we have to make a move towards the future. And if any GM is worth his salt in moving forward, you have to make that move now. You must. You got to. You got to. What do you think about Terry Fontenot? Let me go back. What do you think about Terry Fontenot and Joe Brady combo emerges as a strong possibility for the Falcons GM and head coach jobs? I really hope not. What are your thoughts? Joe Brady was an interesting cat coming out last year. I don't know. It depends on who your quarterback is. I don't think Joe Brady is going to be able to teach Matt Ryan anything right now. And being an offensive guy, I kind of want your influence to be on getting whatever you can out of Matt this 1 year. Because we're going to have Matt this year, folks. But no, you have to give him a little bit of credit. Their drafting has been point on in New Orleans the last few years, rivalry aside. They've been having some good drafts. And if he's in that draft room helping out, I might want to see what he has to say. Polo says next year Matt Ryan's cap hit is still expensive, and you don't want to handcuff the new GM and head coach and try to build their plan to start. No, you're not going to handcuff him this year. A lot of the times, the mistakes you make, Polo, is bringing in somebody without true veteran backup. I think if you bring a young quarterback in here now, let him learn how to be a quarterback. A lot of times, there have been few quarterbacks that come fresh off the street and lead their team to the playoffs. Matter of fact, we had one of them that you draft straight up, absolutely ready, and shoots right to the playoffs. Aside of Matt, it hasn't been more than 5 in the last 10, 15 years. Straight out the box. There hasn't been many. Maybe Russell. I'm trying to think somebody right off the rip. There's not. So what you do is bring in somebody. Let Matt, and I understand what you're saying about handcuffing the GM, but you're not. It's a GM's dream because you get a young guy to learn behind a veteran. Matt Ryan will more than likely be the starter, barring anything crazy. Let him learn and do like they did with Fitzpatrick. They have to be honest with Matt this year. Say, hey, Matt, we're telling you right now, we're drafting for the future. And I think Matt will figure that out after the draft pick. And say, hey, this will either do one or two things. Matt will have an attitude and pout and look like Carson Wentz on the sideline. Or he'll be a professional and say, you know what? Until the check stopped coming from Flowery Branch, I'm going to go out here and do my job. I think Matt is the latter guy. I really do. Chris said Richard Sherman is going to be a free agent this upcoming season. Would you pick him up to be a mentor player for DBs? Maybe 2 years ago, but Sherman has been garbage the last 2 years. Look at San Francisco, and the most of the times you see people throwing, they're throwing on Sherman. Sherman is a shell of himself. I understand the mentorship, but his mentorship, remember, Sherman represents himself. So Sherman's not going to come here for less than $5 million. And I'm not sure if I'm ready to give Sherman that kind of money. It's a good idea, but I think 2 years late. Corey, Matthews only allowed about 3 sacks this year. I'm trying to tell you that, and when you don't hear about the offensive lineman, that's a good thing. We didn't hear as much as we did last year, folks. Even the commentators were talking about how much Matt was holding the ball this year. Even the commentators. It's not a coincidence. AB should be calling Belichick right now, offer him whatever he wants to come here. AB can still sell him on the dome. No more cut-off sweatshirts. Belichick ain't going nowhere. Belichick's still trying to show people that he can do this without Tom. He is not quitting whatsoever, especially since Tom is in the playoffs. Oh, man, please. You see the mock draft where they had Justin Fields falling all the way to New England. And sometimes I think people put stuff on there just to get your attention. Corey says even Lamar didn't come straight out of the box for Baltimore. He sat behind Flacco until the middle of the season, and they took off from there. And that's what those are things I'm talking about, Corey. Unless you just have to, unless you're just forced to. Why? Just because you draft a quarterback top 1, 2, 3, doesn't matter. Let them sit. Now, Jacksonville might be a different situation. And I really think if you keep it real and through my lenses, I think the only quarterback coming out this year that I would say, yeah, he's a day one quarterback. And that's Trevor Lawrence. He's a day one quarterback. I think Justin Fields is close. But I just look at how comfortable that young cat looks, man. And I saw his deep ball, too. Woo! That boy is the truth. He really is. Lisa, it's been 14 years. Hopefully, Matt understands the need for the franchise to move forward. He has had a longer tenure than most in the NFL as a starting quarterback. And let me tell you something, Lisa. We shouldn't feel sorry anyway because he's been heftily compensated these last couple of years. So, yeah, will I pull out the cake? Will I do the thanks for the memories and sing? Absolutely. But they don't know him an explanation. When you go 7-9, 7-9, 4-12, whether you're throwing for 4,000 yards or not, and for those who throw that at people so much, and I was like, calm down. For 3 years straight, he's thrown for 4,000 years, 4,000 yards for 3 straight years, and I know it's 8 total. But for the last 3 years, he's thrown for 4,000 yards. We've gone 7-9, 7-9, and 4-12. So that means nothing. It really doesn't. It's nice for your Hall of Fame if you happen to win a Super Bowl. Matt is one Super Bowl win from being automatic to the Hall of Fame. Matt wins one Super Bowl, he's Hall of Fame. He jumps the line. He jumps over 3 or 4 folks. Just like that. But until then, all they are numbers. And don't mean anything when you're 4-12. Ronnie said, we're going to see how he does tonight. It's going to be, but Ronnie, honestly, I think he's going to have a feeling they do. Alabama's not stopping anybody. The problem is the other side. Alabama can't stop anybody. They can put up 60, but they're going to give up 40. And that's I don't think Justin is going to probably account for four touchdowns today. It's a matter of whether Ohio State's defense can stop them. So today is not the day. I think last week against Clemson, that was impressive because I think Clemson's defense overall is better. Alabama has some nice cornerbacks, Surtain, somebody everybody's been talking about for the Falcons. But, yeah, it's not going to shock me if he does that. I got to wrap up in a second, y'all, because I got to get something to eat. Justin Fields, a day one starter. Watch. Maybe so, PJ. Maybe we'll see. I think I'd rather have Trey Lance or Zach Wilson. Trey Lance has been my intriguing sleeper as far as the draft is concerned. If we see where we could possibly get him, I would truly think about it. I would truly think, especially if we can get him where maybe we could trade into the lower first round or maybe even get him at the beginning of the second round. I'm not sure if he'll last that long, but maybe so. Christian, who are your top 3 head coaching candidates? I do like Joe Brady. I like the guy from Tennessee, Arthur Smith, because I'm thinking about offense. But here's the other one, y'all, and please don't shoot the messenger. I think we might even have our next quarterback already here. And he didn't finish well, but look, if you don't want to, Raheem did not do a horrible job. I think if he had a different offense, if he brought in somebody else to run the offense, and I saw the little rumors about Cutter going to Boise State, that would be great. But to be honest with you, I wouldn't be stomping up and down mad if they brought Raheem back. I would. And if you really think about it, don't sign him long term. But say, you know what? We're going to give you a 1-year extension and say, let's see after all this mess, was it really Dan or was it really the culture that you were part of? Because that's the argument I say for getting rid of Raheem, to say he was part of the culture. But there's another part of me that says, you know what? You're going to have another year with Matt anyway. You're going to have another year with Julio anyway. This GM, I want you to fill this team with talent for the post Matt to Julio combination. And you can do both at the same time, folks. People act like it has to be 2 different things. You can still make your team younger while squeezing the rest out of your veterans as they're getting ready to leave. You can do it. Good teams do. Uh, PJ say I like Buffalo's OC too. Yeah, I wonder is he gonna go anywhere this year though? Maybe if they win the Super Bowl. Uh, Mitchell said thank you. Somebody else likes Trey Lance. I love Trey Lance. I was hollering his name before. Now that we have, because of the Falcons, as much as I love the linebacker out of Penn State, I love Patrick Surtain. I like the guy out of Oregon for also offensive line. But right now in this franchise, this is the first time we've had this high of a pick since 2008 when Matt was taken. You can't waste these picks. And when I mean waste, I'm not saying Parsons isn't good enough. I'm not saying Sewell isn't good enough. I'm not saying Surtain isn't good enough. But I say these are franchise changing picks. You must pick a quarterback this year, this time, whether that be Fields, whether that be Wilson, whether we see if Lance improves his stock. I don't know. But you have to, if you're the Atlanta Falcons franchise and you want any credibility of letting the fans know that you understand what's going on right now, but you're looking towards the future. You build that quarterback, you build confidence in this fan base that you're moving forward. And I really think that's what I think. Kristen says Raheem might get us a wild card position next year if he stays. Folks, we lost 7 games in one possession games. How many times were we all sitting in our seats at the edge of our seats at the last second saying, please don't blow this game, and they blew it? That's 7 games. In the NFC, we really only needed 4 of them to go our way to get to the wild card. So we're not as far away, but we do have to change the culture. I think part of it was changed when Quinn left. It'll be interesting to see the going forward what the regime thinks about either keeping Raheem here and moving forward in that direction. Folks, I got to go get food for the family. Appreciate y'all stopping in. We'll probably drop in if there's a head coach, a GM hire in the next week. We'll pop into the Atlanta Bird Gang. Y'all don't forget, check me out on Steve Sports Talk on YouTube. I will catch y'all later on. Y'all have a happy Monday. Stay warm, man. What's up with this cold? I know it's January, but dang, it ain't gonna be that cold. Anyway, y'all take it easy, man. Tonight, my pick tonight, Alabama against Ohio State. As much as I think I want Ohio State to win, I think Alabama's going to squeeze it out. Look at Alabama by 7, I'll say tonight. Y'all take care, man. Be good.